bodies everywhere. He harries the north, he destroys everything in sight, and he enforces his will on the north of England. The Bollin Valley lies about 9 miles from Manchester, a tranquil and ancient landscape that has produced Bronze Age artefacts, Roman treasures, and stray finds that suggest the area was important to prehistoric hunters as long ago as 10,000 BC. Two Celtic tribes, the Brigantes and Conovi, coexisted here and left their mark, a faint echo of human activity revealed through crop features and earthworks, and occasionally something more bizarre. We're here in a perfectly ordinary front garden in Dunham Woodhouses. And when the elderly gentleman who lived here 10 years ago was burying a deceased cat in the front garden, he came down upon this rather spooky looking face gazing back out of the hole at him. And really interesting. This is one of the finest Celtic stone heads that I've seen recovered anywhere in recent years. It really is superb. With his little pointy chin and Celtic moustache, he's got this long, slender face, and he has these two protrusions here, these bumps, which look very similar to the local Celtic deity Cernunnos. He's amazing. These things lay on the back, gazing up into the sky, and very often mark the positions of human burials, even though at this time he was 18 inches below modern-day ground level. But there's another lesson here as well. That elderly gentleman who I spoke to 10 years ago passed away 7 years ago. And had he not told me the story of this head, that story would have been lost. It's incredibly important that we record things like this while we still can.
Many spend their days passively searching for something interesting to do. Others dig in and find it. While nothing is certain, anything is possible. And the anticipation leads you into action. Because it's here that adventures begin. Stories are unearthed, secrets are revealed, fortunes are found, mysteries are solved, and the past is brought to life. Nothing valued is ever lost. It's simply waiting to be discovered. So here's the question: what are you looking for?
Good evening. It's Thursday. It's 8 o'clock and it's the Big Detecting Show. Welcome back, everybody. Still not quite got my normal awake face back on after the weekend's three-hour shows, but here we are. And sadly, we won't have Adrian alongside us today because Adrian's been family malarkey with his so we're not with him tonight, but thoughts are with Adrian anyway. Hope everything's gone well today, as best that can anyway. But here we are, back again, and it's I've been absolutely manic busy this week. You wouldn't believe it. I've got a few, not many this week, because not many people have given me any announcements, but one in particular. The company behind air detectors have contacted me and told me that they are about to start shipment of the air detector to the people who signed up on the Patreon type thing that they did. And I don't know what, I can't remember what the levels was. You're talking nearly 2 years, well, 2 years ago since that started. So I can't remember what the levels are. But for those of you who did sign up to the Patreon for air detectors, I'm more or less assured that they will be with you in the coming weeks. And that's all that I have there anyway. So I'm going to move on to this week's metal detecting news, if you all don't mind. I hate being on my own without Adrian, but thankfully I've got Mark Olly with me tonight. So there you go. So in this week's news, as you will all know by now, they have updated areas that have been put into Tier 3 restrictions, and this will affect metal detecting in the UK. For example, if you click on the link, it'll tell you, I've put the government guidance on there, so you'll be able to see what the restrictions are. So there'll probably be no rallies in the areas that may have been having them in the coming days. So again, just click on the continue reading links and you will be able to follow that anyway. Next up, a French detectorist accused of looting on a vast scale after a haul discovered at his home. And you can see the amount of fantastic artifacts that he's got there. Patrice T, suspected over hoard including 14,000 Roman coins he claimed to have dug up in a Belgian field. They are potentially saying that he actually either nighthawked the site, or were they in fact found in France and he's gone over to Belgium because it's illegal to detect in France. And if you can hear a dog barking, please excuse me. The arseholes next door who leave the dogging howling all day have obviously gone out. Did you know we have an app? Take a drink for all those in the know. We have a new Android app, so you can get all the news straight to your phone. Just click on there or on the image to take you straight to the Android site to be able to download our app. And it's fine if I do say so myself. Metal detectorist Rob Jones from Copoyeth has won an award for the discovery of a Roman lead ingot, which is there. The detectorist from Copoyeth received the most significant find in Wales from Searcher magazine for his discovery of a Roman lead ingot near Rosset, which is one of the significant objects found in Wales in recent years. Again, if you click on there, tell you all about the ingot itself and the tell you what the inscription actually says. Ancient Egyptian hoard of counterfeit dirty money unearthed. A shortage of silver caused by the collapse of leading Bronze Age civilization around the eastern Mediterranean around 1200 BC resulted in the original dirty money. Several hundred years of coins had been several hundred of years before coins had been invented. The ancient counterfeiting was revealed by archaeologist Zilla Eshel, then a doctoral student of the University of Haifa, who studied the chemical composition of 35 buried hoards of Bronze Age silver found on archaeological sites around Israel. And also, if you click on the images here, these are the articles regarding metal detecting that we've published this week. Cannonballs discovered near the Battle of Beachy Head. A school medal belonging to a Liverpool seaman found buried in Sussex after 100 years. A year of metal detecting finds in Newfoundland in Canada. Finding Captain William Jackson, also in Newfoundland in Canada. A poison ring head discovered in Norfolk. who invented the metal detector, and how does it work? And they are all our latest articles. The only other one which is not on there is this one, which you may remember, but it's now all been sorted. Lovely little ring. Cy Weller, we had on as a guest a couple of weeks ago, was detecting in East Sussex with his father Chris, with his Minelab Equinox 800. You can watch the video of when he actually found the ring, as you can see there, which was absolutely stunning. And he thought automatically that it was a Roman ring. But when he got it home, he found it was a little bit more modern. He took it to Chatfield Jewellers, local to himself, for cleaning and identification, and they've had it returned, and you'll see it momentarily. And it's a beautiful 1907 9-carat gold intaglio ring with a Birmingham hallmark. There you go. Absolutely stunning. So all of that information and much, much more. Even that one about sea monsters, and that one about an Egyptian mystery. I forgot I'd actually done them, so I'll have to share them later. But they are all the current things going on the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine. So without further ado, can I welcome you to tonight's guest, a good friend of mine. I won't say old friend because I said that before. He went old. Mr. Mark Olly. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Dave.
I didn't say old.
No, you didn't. You didn't. I'll give you that.
Mark and I have now known each other for coming up to 20 years.
Whoa,
I know him.
far too long.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Wow.
I know you, but some of the viewers might not know you. So would you mind introducing yourselves to them?
Right. Okay. Archaeologist, historian, writer, TV presenter, musician. I play the drums. That probably covers all of it. I also produce programs as well. Came out of Lost Treasures, which you've probably already seen the trailer for. And I'm still producing them up to today, and I'm still working in television today. When you can do that under the current crisis, that's me. I can't really say any more than that. I'm just sat here at Christmas time with my Christmas stuff around me and doing the old Val Doonican thing, but you know, without the Christmas jumper.
Are you in a rocking chair?
No, I'm not in a rocking chair. You can't have a rocking chair when you're on camera because you keep going back and two out of focus. But,
believe me, some of the people we've had on weren't even in focus to begin with.
Right.
But
okay.
Hey, so how did you originally become involved in the subjects of history and archaeology?
Interesting one, that. If you turn the clock back to the 1960s and 70s, there weren't professional archaeological diggers back then. It wasn't really a profession. It's something you did with the local antiquarian societies and what have you. And Warrington Archaeological and Historical Society had volunteer diggers, and my dad was a volunteer digger. So in the mid to late 1970s, they were excavating the Roman settlement here at Wilsonville Causeway in Warrington. And I was 8 years old, and my dad said, "Do you fancy coming on a dig?" So I went, "Yes, okay." And literally handed me a trowel. He went, "Right, in that hole now, down in the hole, scraping away in the sand." I did what everybody does. Everybody does this on Time Team. As soon as I hit the first piece of Roman pottery, I picked it up and I went, "Oh, look what I've got here." And everybody went, "Put it back, put it back." So anyway, from that point on, I was absolutely hooked at digging archaeology. For me, the chase is better than the catch. I do like seeking things out. But then kind of once you've found something, I mean, it must be common to metal detectors as well, you just want to move on because you're never quite sure what the next thing's going to be. So from 8 years old onwards, I was volunteer digger for many, many years, and then ended up going to art college, which at that time was opposite Warrington Museum. Trained under some really, really excellent people there from Liverpool on their extension studies course, then got swallowed up by the newly emerging archaeology. So I ended up doing Norton Priory and some castles and all sorts of places through the 1970s into the 1980s. Then in early 1980s, I got a record contract with a pop band and vanished from history for the next 21 years. But, you know, when you're out touring with bands and stuff like that, you know, your training comes into play, and visited lots of excellent places. I mean, people get really bored on tour. So, you know, when you're turning up in different towns, different cities, you get a chance to go and have a look at the archaeology, which is what I did. So then I came back to it in the 1990s. I retired from the music business, wrote the first book, Celtic Warrington, first in the series, Celtic Warrington and Other Mysteries. And the rest, as they say, is history. Sorry for the pun.
We'll go on to something a little bit later on, Mark, about when you get excited and pull something out of a hole.
Oh yeah, all right.
We'll in fact, I've got a photograph to prove it. There's the photograph.
Okay.
So obviously 1990s, you formed at some point in that time Celtic Warrington project, am I right?
Yes. I suppose I should really explain what's going on. It's a good chance for me first plug as well. I've got a few of these coming up. There it is. That's Celtic Warrington Other Mysteries Book 1.
I've got exactly the same one in my hand at the moment.
I would imagine you have. Okay. I wrote that. So that kind of got me sort of fired up back again into archaeology. And it was followed by number 2. There you go. Whoop, there we are, number 2. So you can dash out and get that one from Amazon. And that was in turn followed up by, yes, you've guessed it, number 3. That's the third one in the series. Okay, this is the rarest one because I don't think everybody knew this was released. But there is a number 3. There you go. In order to work with things like that and generate things like that, it's quite handy to have your own archaeological unit. So actually, CWP, Celtic Warrington Project Archaeology, ran for 12 years, which is not bad for an independent unit. And we just did loads and loads of digs. We just had a habit of hitting the target. We trained a lot of people, generated innumerable amounts of finds, reports, mostly working on private sites for private people rather than commercial archaeology. And at the end of the day, it started Lost Treasures. So I can honestly say that had those books not been written, there would be no Lost Treasures because they became the source material for the TV program, which again ran to 22 episodes over 5 years, which is quite some going for a relatively small ITV production. While I'm into collectibles, though, I may as well plug this one because if you can find that, there you go. There are only 500 of those ever made, and that's season 1. And we're currently working on trying to get 2 and 3 out at the moment. There's 1 or 2 licensing issues, but if it comes out, it'll probably be on flash drive. But those you might be able to pick up secondhand because they sold out like hotcakes. So that's the complete Celtic Warrington, I guess. That's everything you need to know.
And the program Lost Treasures is very, very rare. I think there's only 1 or 2 episodes that are actually on YouTube as well.
Yes, the reason for that is ITV are quite keen on the productions they do. Although at the moment it's out of license and the copyrights devolve back to me, we're currently working on trying to get something on one of the probably the pay-to-view channels and trying to get them all online. They're not actually there yet, but as they always say, watch this space. The time will come.
Fingers crossed, because the last time we actually spoke on the podcast, you were nowhere near that position.
No. I have recently done a small bit of work for Iconic Media, which is David Icke's son's channel. They do a walking program for their subscribers, and I do 20 minutes or so for them down at Avebury. So if people want to go and Google that and try and find Iconic, it's the first episode of a series, so I may appear in that again. So that's kind of the direction I'm heading into, the pay-to-view stuff. So maybe that's a hint as to where Lost Treasures may ultimately end up. Plus a couple of other productions as well. It is worth me mentioning when we did Lost Treasures, there were 2 other DVDs that came out. There's that one, which you can see. If you want to see Europe's Roswell, it's UFO crash with debris. So there's evidence. I think that's on Sky Channel 200. So you can actually go and watch that. And there are a few of these knocking around, okay? So you can always Google that. You'll find that. I'm getting these plugs in thick and fast. The other collector's one is that one, Britain's Lost Mega Fortress, which we actually produced that for Sky. That's a Sky History Channel DVD that was done in the middle of Lost Treasures. So that was a spin-off, if you like. But again, second-hand copies only, I'm afraid. There were 500 of those produced as well.
Is that the one regarding Chester?
Yes, specifically it's the Chester material. But there's a lot more in that than appeared in Lost Treasures. Obviously, you can't do a lot in a half an hour show. That's about an hour and 10 minutes, something like that, with lots of extras.
Yeah, that's I've seen that on quite a few times on the History Channel. So, and
Yeah,
I'm sure other people will have as well. So, obviously, you've. I mean, I've been on what I think about 4 or 5 different sites with you as an archaeologist. You kindly accepted myself and some other people onto your site as volunteers at, and I'm going to get beaten up because I'm great when it comes to pronunciation. Llanamen Inyal.
yes,
I got it
yes,
right, which is
yes. You
between
actually got it right.
Ruthin and Mold in North Wales.
Yes, yeah, really significant North Wales site.
Very,
Yeah,
very significant.
yeah.
Sadly, it was me that sprung the leak as well, but we'll come back to that momentarily because it might have been a good thing.
Well, yeah. You find what you find. You deal with it as you get to it,
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah.
But you brought us onto the site originally. Now it was just Celtic Warrington Project people who were on there at the time, and you'd started. There's a cave. Now Cave Babe was obviously excavated there. Jenny, tell us about that cave in particular because it turned out again to be quite significant.
It's a happy story, but it's also got a sad ending. We were excavating in a cave that was full of rubble, and it was pretty obvious that the floor level we were looking at wasn't the original floor level of the cave. So we started to drop part of the floor level very carefully to see what was going on. It was literally full of hardcore, like the stuff that you build roads on, limestone chippings. And then we noticed that there was a cavity going away into the wall of the cave. So we were looking to have a speleologist, which, as you say, is Jenny. That's someone that specialises in excavating in small spaces. And gradually, this cavity began to open up. So all of a sudden, she's in a cave that hasn't been opened since the backfill went into this main cave. Anyway, she carried on excavating that. That was exciting enough. We had, it was so small that she kind of squeezed in, and we had to pass her a video camera so she could video inside it. Excuse me. And then she decided to keep going, and there was another cave at the back of that cave, and then she decided to keep going again. So she then came to a point where the rubble, the infill, literally vanished in front of her. It went boom, 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 and you could hear this rattling apparently in the distance where it rattled into this enormous cavity. And she shone a torch in, and you can see this on the video that we shot at the time. She shone a torch in, and you can't see where the torch beam goes. It just goes into nothing. But guess what? It was on the last day. So we had to fill it in. So we blocked the hole up. So we know there's this socking great big cavity down there, and we can't get in it. We can't do anything. So it's just sat there, and it's still sat there to this day. I would be delighted to put some kind of fibre optic camera in there or some floodlights or something. But that was like the biggest discovery of we've been on there for years. Can't remember how many years, 6, 7 years or something. And that was the biggest discovery. And we couldn't do anything about it because we were literally pulling off the day she found it. So there you go.
The cave itself, excavated in there, we found multiple bones of different varieties. Tell us about them because, again, there was quite a few shocks, wasn't there?
Yeah, many surprises there. We assumed that the infill, we assumed that everything that was in there had obviously, been dumped in there by quarry workers because it looked like quarry working stuff. But the stuff that was coming out of the deposits, all of it was extinct animal bones. We also did a pollen and sort of snail shell analysis of the stuff that came out of the back of the cave. And that was washed in at a time when it was more than likely in the Ice Age. We got a bone net making pin out of there. And again, right at the very end, the last week of digging, we got a tiny little human toe bone. Now, you've got to remember that there's no burials in this cave. Everything's just all, mixed up. It's really confused. But that actually went off to Liverpool for analysis by a professor at the archaeological department there in Liverpool. And she sent us a full report, a full analysis of all the bones. The bones, the report, the analysis, all the information to do with the dig, then went to Llangollen Museum. So it's in their archive now, where you can get access if you book for access. But there's some really interesting stuff in there. Absolutely brilliant dig, brilliant site. Again, it's what you can do when you're working on a private site. You can work for the people that own the site, and you can bring people on then who are selected for jobs on the site, very much like yourself.
I absolutely loved it. I mean, you employed us, and I use the term employed as in used us, myself and Steve, to do a metal detecting survey on the site as well.
Yeah.
And again, you had multiple finds of consequence. Not only there, but again, I'll go back momentarily to the adjacent field at the back of the property as well.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, I know for a fact the one that stands out is definitely Jettons on there that ended up in Llangollen Museum.
Yeah,
or Library
down
Museum.
there. The big one, I suppose, was that in the 1950s, there was a military aircraft that crashed outside Glenarman, and it's quite a big local story. Nobody actually knew where it came down. There was just a big bang in the sky, and this aircraft, went whizzing down. There was a big flash. Nobody knew where it crashed. Doing the detecting in the field immediately behind the farm confirmed that is at least where one of the engines and part of the fuselage came down. So,
well, we definitely also find, if you remember, we had the communications board as well.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
I mean, all I was finding was rivets and bits of aircraft. It was when back then, Mark, in like 2002, I didn't realise the significance being a metal detectorist, because it was more or less at the start of my journey as an archaeologist. No, I'm not archaeologist.
You're
as
an
a metal
detectorist. That's what you are, an archaeodetectorist.
So I don't now. It's more significant, and I'd love to be able to relive it now, as opposed to the little knowledge that I had back then.
Well, you've got to start somewhere. You basically got to start somewhere. I mean, what an amazing site. We had everything from Ice Age right the way through to a 1950s plane crash.
We did.
I mean, amazing. Sites like that don't come along every day. It's now been identified as one of what's known as the Cleese sites, which is the Welsh courts of the princes. So the Tommen, which is the hill, the Norman Motte Bailey Castle, that's stuck adjacent. That's stuck adjacent to the site we were on. Ours is older. It's a Dark Age palace site, basically. That's where we ended up at the end of the day. That's how it appears. Because we were getting post-Roman finds, which is really unusual, especially off the roadway. And then you got Garman's Well in the back. Well, Garman was alive in the 5th and 6th century. So, hey, I know I'm sticking my neck out there because it's not the official site.
Not that one. It's how you actually came about Garman's Well.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
That was
some
somebody
bloke with a pickaxe.
No, it wasn't a pickaxe. It was a crowbar.
Oh, a crowbar.
If you remember, we had a perfectly formed rectangular trough, basically.
It was basically like a tank.
And I'm fiddling with a stone in the middle. I pulled the stone out, and by the time the next morning we came, the whole site was flooded to the point of no return.
But I mean, in all fairness, it was a well, so sooner or later that was probably inevitably going to happen. And the best part of it was, once the water came up, you couldn't argue that it was anything else but a well.
Absolutely.
When it flooded, you just took one look at it, and it was obvious what it was.
And that's when I also received my second slap of the pig as well.
I banned crowbars, I banned pickaxes. There was none of that going on. I mean, the famous one, isn't it? Richard III, live on television, that female archaeologist puts the pickaxe through his skull, And I'm like, now you know why I ban them. Now you know why you shouldn't be using pickaxes on digs.
And the other one, the front garden, we'll call it, was basically, that was where you were looking originally for the signs of the original manor house, am I correct? But obviously things different occurred. And this is also, Mark, where I personally realised the benefits of having chickens as archaeologists. We had multiple chickens on the site that allowed free reign, and when we went home, the chickens went pecking everywhere at the soil that we'd obviously moved. And talk about archaeologists, some of the things that they were finding was spectacular.
Well, they tend to throw stuff out of the way, don't they? If anything gets on the road, they just chuck it out of the way. That front field was amazing, because here we are looking for what is essentially a Cleese site, a sort of a manor house or whatever. And what we got instead appears to be the metalworking floor. So you guys are detecting it, and what you basically got was an outward scatter of metal fragments going away from where the anvil would have been and stuff like that. So it was great. We could actually plot it without needing expensive gear. We just set you guys loose on it. And then there was the wall across the middle, and it looked as if it was attacked in the Civil War, because there was definitely evidence of conflict on the outside of the wall. So the wall looked like it had been added as a defensive structure across the front. It wasn't quite what we were looking for, but it was still exciting, and it was totally unexpected.
And then coming into the backfield is where we started our personal little
Yeah.
dig. And this is where I got told off for the first time, because everyone went off for dinner, and apart from me, and I stayed over the hole, and I decided to start taking stones out, didn't I?
Yeah.
That hadn't been logged
Recorded.
and
Yeah.
recorded.
Yeah.
And I got told off, very much so. And it was, again, during the end of the day. The night dew came down. We all went home while we was there. We come back the next morning, and it occurred that I'd actually found something else inadvertently.
Yeah.
And that's where the Roman road popped up.
Yeah, that was the Roman road. It actually was the Roman road surface. It was a great find. I mean, obviously, you didn't do a great deal of damage, because you can see on that photo there's only a tiny slot about a foot wide by about 2 foot across, where you took a few stones out. But when you're dealing with Welsh sites, all they are, as a rule, is piles of rocks. So you've really got to pay attention to the piles of rocks. It's kind of the other side of archaeology. But it does raise this issue with metal detectors that, you know, whatever you hit, whatever you find, wherever it is, you know, for goodness sake, keep some kind of a record. Film it, photograph it, video it, GPS where you are. You know, if it's in a public place where there's heavy traffic, then obviously you might have to do some form of rescue to rescue it if you think it's going to get nicked or damaged or trampled. But at the end of the day, the whole thing is about recording. It's about, you know, where it is, what it is, and how it is. Because that's what you're going to pass on to future generations. You know, there's no point sort of waving around some of the best archaeology in the world and then not having a clue where it comes from. You know, when you're dead and gone, the thing that survives are the records, the recording of that, which CWP did really well. We've got a huge archive, which eventually I think will probably find its way into Trafford. It'll go into the archaeological community in Manchester, I think, eventually. But wow, you know, it's still active. You know, we're still adding to it. There's still finds coming up today.
So is Celtic Warrington project still active?
It's not active in the sense that we're digging. Okay, we're not. We're just too old for it, really. You know, we're all mostly non-diggers now. But when you get into archaeology, you cannot escape finds. Okay, so the people who are watching this are probably thinking, I wonder what the last thing was he found. You know, what was the last thing he unearthed? Well, I'm going to amaze you now by saying I'm actually sat next to it, because directly adjacent to me here, this here, is a chimney with an open fire underneath it of about 100 years old. And when we were restoring the property, we didn't even know that was there. So earlier this year, we actually set about pulling it out, clearing it out, restoring it. And about a month ago, we actually refired it. But that is industrial archaeology. It's of a particular type of fireplace that's common to this village. There are actually about half a dozen of them scattered around. So even in the process of restoring the property that I'm sat in now, archaeology played a key part in it. But obviously there's lots of more exciting finds than a fireplace. But that's the last find. So literally, I'm sat in now talking to you with a find next to me.
So of all the finds that you have, and I'm talking artifacts as opposed to buildings and brick walls and structures and such like, as an artifact, what would be the most memorable find that you've been privy to or found yourself?
Right. It's an interesting one. Okay, I've got to say right at the beginning that I'm probably most famous for being the archaeologist that's never found anything materially valuable. Because everybody asks me, "Oh, have you found anything made of gold or silver or, you know, precious stones?" The answer's probably no. I don't think I've ever found anything of that sort of level of value. I did once archaeologically excavate a knight in armor that was still in his burial. I mean, that's exciting stuff like that. And you know, I've found an entire Saxon hill fort before now, but I've not actually, you know, materially benefited from that. However, I am quite well known for finding that, which is, as it stands at the moment, the oldest man-made object in Cheshire. And that was picked off a field in Mere, which is not far from Knutsford. And I was out on one of the Celtic Warrington surveys looking at a building with a photographer friend of mine, and she actually picked this up and she handed it to me. And I'm like, wow, that is quite a discovery. We then went on to find another 7 pieces of flint within about 2 meters of this thing. And the significance of it, which will be lost on most people looking at it because it just looks like an enormous blob of toffee. The significance is that it's Ice Age and it dates from about 480,000 BC. And at this time, when this was around, it was Homo erectus that made it. There was woolly mammoths, there was woolly rhinoceros, saber-toothed cats. So you're back in prehistory. But even more importantly, we here in the north of England were supposed to be under about 2 miles of ice, because this is the Ice Age. But very clearly, this is a hunter site. It's a hunting site, because this is for chopping up meat. It's from a gap in the glaciers called the Hoxnean Interglacial. So by picking this off a field and collecting the rest of the flint, me and my Celtic Warrington photographer rewrote the entire Ice Age history of Britain by picking up this stone. So, you know, they talk in metal detecting terms of eyes only finds. Well, keep your eyes open, guys, because believe me, some of these eyes only finds, you know, are quite significant. So that's probably one that is, you know, up there with the best of the best.
It doesn't.
Well,
The monetary value means nothing at the end of the day. I mean, some of my metal detecting finds, you know, just a pair of Victorian nutcrackers that I found means something to me, because I found them and I thought, wow, last time somebody was working with these was 100 odd years ago.
Yeah.
And I found them, and I didn't know what they were when it come out of the ground, but I love them, absolutely love them. And I'm sure other people will be, you know, not dissimilar in the finds. But when you say about eyes only finds, many of the people that, well, several 10, maybe 15 people that I know have found something not dissimilar, some form of worked tool, Neolithic, Paleolithic, and such like.
Yeah.
We should keep our eyes out, not just obviously for this, but you know, when you're out in the ploughed fields where everything's been turned over, there's some fantastic things that you see, especially in areas that are well known for, you know, stone circles and such, like Arbolo, the Bull Ring, like Glastonbury Tor. I'm going to talk about Stonehenge, all them different places within a radius. Keep your eyes out. I mean, personally, Mark, every time I'm out and about, if I'm metal detecting, I find a piece of pottery, it goes in my bag.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, totally.
Whatever it is.
Totally. As long as you know where it comes from, you know, you might get a scatter. It might identify a site.
Absolutely.
I've got another one.
Log them finds as well.
Yeah, do you want me to share another one?
Of course I do, yeah.
CWP Archaeology excavating a farmhouse here in Appleton, which is just up the road from here.
I was with you. Pulling out
shoes.
shoes.
Do you remember when we were excavating what appeared to be some kind of arranged back garden? Very late on an October day, there was the sun coming in at quite an oblique angle, and there was a big block of stone that appeared to have a handprint in it. And I've actually got the cast of that here. Here it is. I don't know how clear you can see that, but you can see it. There it is.
Yeah.
You can quite clearly see there what appears to be, actually I'm doing it wrong there, what appears to be there it is. There's a handprint there. Okay. You can quite clearly see that. Turns out it's a dinosaur footprint. Okay. Wow. Now, around here, we have this thing called the labyrinthodon, or chirotherium, if you want to be technical. And it's supposed to be a crocodile. It's supposed to walk on all fours. But I actually took this to Liverpool Museum because I don't know a great deal about, you know, dinosaur footprints. You can quite clearly see here, it's got a sort of a V shape to the middle pad. You see that V shape there? See that V shape?
Yeah.
Now, the chirotherium prints are supposed to have the pads going acrossways that way. Now, chirotherium are 10 a penny, actually. There's quite a lot of them around. They find them in Limb, they find them on the Wirral. This one looks more like it's a two-footed dinosaur that runs on 2 feet. So there's every possibility that the original of this, which is back with the original site and the original owners, the original of this could be from a 2-footed dinosaur, very much like a velociraptor. So you're looking here at a runner, not a walker. So that's another really important, significant find in a block of sandstone in somebody's back garden.
I wasn't actually there for that, but interesting story about that particular site. Janet and Celia are with me. Janet, better known as Dobby, had to pull me out of the pit because it was getting a bit deep and I'd actually turned purple.
Yeah, I remember that.
Anyway, Mark, what I'm going to do now, I'm going to share the screen because we're going over to our weekly draw. That'll be with us in About a minute. We can still chat till then, obviously. I can't see
Okay.
anything. You'll be able to see what's going on, but we can't. I can't see anything else because I'm looking at this. But yeah, Appleton Thorn. It was an interesting site. I mean, obviously, you've took the history of that right back to prehistory again.
Well,
But
yeah.
why was I, in particular, that's what I'm memorable about it, bringing out old shoes?
That's because there was an admiral called Admiral Daniel Hoare, Hoare, who in 1752-53 rebuilt the entire house. And what we wanted to do was find his bottle dump, in effect. And we got a hot tip that, there was this dump not far from the back door of the original part of the property. So we just put everybody on it straight away. Now, it wasn't the Admiral's dump. It was the farm dump, and it started around 1800 and then came more up to date. But there were just so many finds behind the wall, and the wall needed rebuilding. So one way or another, all that stuff was going to, come out. So the owners of the property said, right, knock yourselves out, get stuck in. Fantastic training opportunity. Bottle dumping has come to an end, essentially. Now, there's not many people that still do it. So to be able to officially do it and record it layer by layer was just a privilege. And then the old guy who owns the farm came walking up, and he was rummaging through the finds, and he went, "Oh, where do you find these?" And he pulled a pair of glasses out like that. He said, "I dropped them behind the wall when I rebuilt it in the 1960s." He said, "Thank you very much." And he cleaned the lenses on the glasses, put them back on, and walked off. He was pretty chuffed a bit.
Right, the draw is just started to take place, Mark. You have to pick a number between, how many we got this week? 1 and 22. Now, there's only 22 because I forgot to put it up, so it's a little bit late. So pick a number between 1 and 22.
Right, totally random. Number 17.
I'll go for my normal. No, in fact, I'm going to go for number 4. So, first number 0, second number 0, so it might be a 4. This is going to look like a fex again if it's number 4. And it's number 7. I was going to go for 7. So, can you read that at all, Mark?
No.
Right. So the winner this week for the 10 Diggers Dips tokens is McShocko. Not 100% sure who that is, but congratulations and thank you to Diggers Dips for providing that. Now, Mark, it's time for people to go for a wee as Luke plays the adverts.
Okay.
I'm Dave D, and you're watching XP Team USA.
Will you search through the lonely earth for me? Climb through the briar and bramble. I'll be your treasure. I felt the touch of the king.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We will be having the second draw in the near future. Luke's going to tap me on the shoulder when that is about to take place. And I forgot to mention at the start of the show, so you've got several minutes to go over to ArkMD Mag TV on YouTube, and there's a small 30-second video. Just comment, subscribe and comment subscribe or Detecticon for your chance to win 2 full weekend tickets and with camping for Detecticon in July next year. Take no notice of the dates that I've put on there because they're wrong. But hey, there's still Detecticon tickets. Anyway, welcome back, young man.
Welcome back. Yes, I'm here.
Some, you know, the conversation that we're having, Mark, it's spurred on so many memories of my own for the places that we've been to and the things that I've seen and have been privy to. Going back to Llanarmon and Yal, which I pronounced correctly, which had a fantastic little pub called the Raven, which had fantastic real ale, and a lovely church as well as the Mott and Bailey Castle and the Ice Age Cave and the Manor House. And who'd have thought that for such a small village as well?
Well, it was amazing, and the locals really welcomed us.
They did indeed.
As a village, though, it's changed. I have to say that the pub's gone. The Raven's not there anymore.
Really?
Yeah, it's a private house now. I mean, obviously the history's still there. I would encourage people to go and visit it. It is quite a significant place to go. I would discourage people, though, from metal detecting a lot of the private land around there because they're quite keen. But if you just want to go and have a look at above ground remains, there's more than enough there for an enormous day out. We did it as, I think it was episode 2 of season 1 of Lost Treasures. So if anyone out there can find that blue box of the first 6 episodes, all the secrets are in there. You have to just go and find a second-hand copy, I'm afraid. But yeah, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And it's the people that make it, you know, which is probably the same, I would imagine, with metal detecting.
Absolutely, yeah. As I say, myself and yourself have said, "Come on, Mark, let's go up the top," and we actually climbed the hill that the cave was within, and we stood on the top. And am I right in saying we also saw in the adjacent field, which was not on the same property, numerous circular shapes on the field?
Yes, you were right. Yeah, what we ended up with was a line. There was a line of burial mounds, and they were quite significant. The way they were spaced and the way they were positioned, and we've actually got a complete line now all the way across the village. The church sits on one. All sorts. I mean, there's even more than I'm allowed to tell publicly, but there's a tremendous amount. Somebody could spend their entire life, I think, focusing on just on Clonarmon with the archaeology that's there. Absolutely phenomenal. Really phenomenal.
So, of all the sites that you've visited, you've been involved in, you've dug on, which one would you think is the most? It was your favourite, not the most significant. Was your favourite?
Wow, it's got to be the one. 14 years of age. I got dumped onto Norton Priory, which was the biggest ever monastic archaeological dig in European history. There's never been a bigger one. Funnily enough, it's stuck at Runcorn. It's the last place on God's earth you'd look for a medieval priory, really.
Absolutely.
But it's just an incredible site, and I can still remember to this day. There I am with this brushing away on this skeleton's rib cage, no protective gear or anything, because you didn't bother in the 1970s. And I'm brushing away at the rib cage, and then the whistle blows. You dust your hands off, and you pick your butty up, and you start eating your butty. I mean, everyone out there now is cringing like mad. But as I looked up and I looked across the site, there's 120 to 130 skeletons, all excavated, and most of that's done by volunteers.
Yeah.
But to just gaze across an entire monastic site under excavation, what can I say? It kind of stays with you. Do you know what I mean? That's not something you're going to forget in a hurry.
Is there any truth, Mark? Sorry.
I was going to say there is another one as well, and that stays with me as well. People might remember that in the museum, the Maritime Museum in Liverpool, they actually had a U-boat, U-534, that was raised intact, and it was stuck on a big stand outside there. Well, just before they sliced that up to put it on the terminal where it is now, it's on the ferry terminal. In Lost Treasures, I got to go through that with a torch. So dropping into one end of a U-boat and walking the full length of a U-boat with a torch, that kind of stays with your memory as well. That's instead of me digging the archaeology up, the archaeology actually swallowed me.
Yeah.
It was
I remember seeing that it was at Birkenhead Docks for a while, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's in one of the Lost Treasures episodes, and it is literally like walking through the Titanic with the water taken out. So I'm not going to forget that one in a hurry.
Going back to Norton Priory, there's a suggestion that one of the skeletons there was abnormally large. Is there any truth in that?
It depends what you mean by abnormally large.
A giant.
Well, there's a misnomer that knights and medieval people in general were midgets, and that's why all the doors are so small. I've excavated actually a lot of knights on different sites, at least 3 or 4 different sites. The average height for the average knight is between 6 and 7 foot, but there was one skeleton that was estimated to be over 7 foot. So there was a really big fella, an absolutely really big fella. I seem to remember it was in the Dedutton Chapel, which I think was off to one side. So it's probably one of the Deduttons. But he was a big fella. He really was a big fella, not to be tangled with. But it depends what you mean as a giant. I mean, if the rest of the population's growth was slightly stunted, anybody over 7 foot is going to be significantly bigger.
And of course, not very far away, just over the water, you also have the Giant of Hale.
Well, the Giant of Hale's a different story altogether. We featured him in Lost Treasures as well, and I don't know if anyone ever saw the wood carving that was there. I mean, he really was big. I think you were talking in excess of 9 foot. He was something like 9'10", but he had hormonal growth problems. But he truly would have qualified as a giant.
And fought in the King's Court as well.
Yes, he did. He went down to London and had a boxing match with the King's champion and absolutely slaughtered him. This guy's hands were bigger than shovels, you know what I mean? So you can imagine him just kind of getting into the ring and going, speak to the hand, speak to the hand. You know, the other guy wouldn't have stood a chance, absolutely wouldn't have stood a chance.
I was going through some old files the other day and found a number of old articles that were written for me through a previous magazine, which I'm able to bring to the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine, hence the one I've just released today, the Sea Serpent ones by Richard Freeman. But one of the things I actually found was something I wrote good 10 years ago about the Giant of Hale, so I'm able to put that on this week. And the wood carving that you were on about, I've actually got an image of that, which is also going to be included. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, fantastic.
It's a fantastic tale. Now, one of the other sites, and I'm going to bring this site up in particular because of the Metal Detecting Association, which you'll know where I'm going already, but we'll get to the Metal Detecting Association in a wee while. A place in Cheshire called Manley and Manley Old Hall. Am I right?
Yes.
You were looking for the site of the old hall.
Yeah. Amazing site. Moated platform identified from the air on Google and, maps and what have you. It was actually on Victorian maps as a moat, but nobody really could understand what the site was made of, how it was composed, where the buildings were, where the bridge was. So we kind of got stuck in over a number of seasons. We were on there quite a number of years. And during that time period, we identified the entire layout of the site. But I know exactly what you're referring to because it's back to the same old story of, I don't seem to find anything on dig sites. There's a bloke walking past in the next field with a metal detector, thinks he's picked up some nuts and bolts at the bottom of this telegraph pole. So he goes digging and pulls out the Manley ring, which, it's got a black raw diamond in the top of it, solid gold, absolutely phenomenal mount. The whole ring's carved. It's got writing on it. It's got religious symbols on it. It's got E3 stars, E3 stars, E, so it looks like it might have something to do with Edward III. It's clearly medieval. It's clearly ecclesiastical. It could very well be Knights Templar, and he picks this thing up, fights its way through the coroner process to get it, finally to auction. 84,000 quid split equally between him and the landowner, but he did it properly. He did it right. He did it, he reported it. It went through the right process. And all I did was have it placed into my hand the Sunday morning after the Saturday that he'd found it. And it's one of those moments where you look at it and you just break sweat. It's just an incredible object. And it was so good to have that and see that and be a part of it. I wrote the initial report on it. I translated the original engraved inscriptions on it. And it wasn't far off where it ended up when it ran through the corridor. So that was a sort of personal victory for me. But it was absolutely phenomenal to actually see that. And literally, it was about 100 yards away from where we were digging. And all we're getting is, rotting shoes and old pieces of timber and pottery.
One of our viewers this evening, David Dickinson, actually preempted the conversation and came up with the ring. Something somebody else actually said before, Mark, which I meant to tell you. I was looking through the comments during the break. I think it was Rob Random, perhaps. He's actually found the European Roswell. It's actually playing on Amazon Prime at the moment.
Whoa, like it.
So you can get Amazon Prime if you've got it, like myself. You'll be able to watch that. And I'm pretty sure it's still, again, easily accessible. Is the Roman one regarding the mega fortress as well?
You'd have thought
sure that's played semi-regularly.
That somewhere. Yeah, I think the History Channel would have put that somewhere. Let me plug something other people can get hold of, by the way. Here we go. Latest books. I bet you don't even know half of these are out there, but here we go. Latest books. Disappearing Ninth Legion.
I've saw you advertise it.
Yeah, that's out there. So go and have a look. That's on Amazon and Waterstones, etc. You got this one's a nice one. Here we go. Life and Times of the Real Robin Hood. Now, the thing with this is we spelt Robin Hood the right way, but when you Google it, you've got to spell it the right way as well. Okay? Because ROBYNHOODE, you've got to get it right or you won't be able to find it. Yes, you've got it. I was just going to hold that one up, Green Man.
Luke's way ahead of us. He's on the Amazon account.
He's a good man.
Mark Ollie Amazon, and he's going through the books on there.
Hey, he's got them.
Well, I've actually, I came to one of your Robin Hood lectures at Buxton Spiritual Fair. You were
Yeah.
doing a lecture there on that, so I was actually
Look at
privy
this.
to that.
He's doing so well.
You see, I know you, Mark. I can hold a conversation because I remember.
Yeah, you
Somehow
were
I'm getting
there.
these spurs of information that are popping up in my head.
Yeah,
Don't
you
know
were
how
there.
somehow. What? Look at this
Okay.
one, an audio book.
No, nothing to do
UFO
with
Chronicles.
Oh, it might be something to do with me. I don't know, but no, it kind of ends at Celtic Warrington. If you flick back though, I've got a couple of exclusives for you. Okay, because there's one or two little bobs that are not on there. Okay, that's the one he's just shown you, revealing the Green Man. Well, the Robin Hood one has now been converted into this. The Life and Times of the Real Robin Hood. This is the DVD. So the book will tell you what, and the DVD will show you where. So we actually take you around all the sites. And that, again, it's a really good presentation. That it's one we've done ourselves. So it's not for television. You won't find it on television, but it is out there and you can order it. We got plenty of these. Okay, so do go and hunt that one down. And then I thought I'd slip this one in. Okay, this year. There's a really obscure order of knights, a bit like the Knights Templar, that nobody will have ever heard of, called the Fleur-de-Lis. But they're very, very old, and they're a real order of knights, and they are now 580 years old.
Wow.
So if you want to get hold of a copy of this, just Google the Order of the Fleur-de-Lis, and you could be able to get one of these, which tells you all about one of the oldest knight orders in Europe. Okay. It's quite a phenomenal documentary of their celebrations of 580 years. The next one to come out is the 9th Legion, which we've got, but we haven't had it pressed up yet. So, you know, watch this space. It's coming.
Fantastic.
Last plug. Let me get the last plug. Somebody on there said, did I ever do acid when I was in the rock business? And the answer is no. I've never done a drug in my life, but it did remind me to plug this. If you go on a site called Exit Live, okay, we got the old band back together after 40 years. And this is the gig. And if you go on Exit Live and you search for Wolf, you can actually buy the best of the gig for a measly $4.99. So get yourselves out there and have a laugh.
And what musical genre is that, Mark?
It's rock music. It's your typical, you know, well, what it was, 1970s rock music. We played the gig in 1979, so we decided to come back and do it in 2019. The same venue with the same crew, with the same audience, with the same lineup, playing exactly the same material.
Fantastic.
Voila! I don't think anybody else has ever pulled that off, but there you go. That's all the adverts, by the way. The adverts are out of the way now.
Well, one of the Rob Randoms asked, "How can you be a musician without drugs?"
Maybe I'm the first one. I don't know.
High on life. High on life. So,
at least I'm still here playing. Do you know what I mean? I'm 60 in 2 years. You know,
but so is Keith Richards.
I can still run upstairs. You know what I mean? Yeah, there's always Keith Richards, but then, you know, Rolling Stones, they steal everybody else's soul. You know, that's how they.
Well, the thing is, when the world dies and the apocalypse happens, Keith Richards will still be there. Oh,
absolutely. There'll be rats, cockroaches, and Keith Richards, and me, because I'm going to switch the lights off.
Back to Manly anyway. I was lucky enough to get hold of Jenny's copy of the final report, the documents, and read through that at length. And that was fascinating. And, you know, the amount of things, because again, that was a big, long few years that you had on there. And obviously what I was going to bring up was that you ended up actually as an instructor for Chester College University.
Yes. I've done quite a lot of work with Chester College. I taught archaeology there for quite a while. Actually, it's a good advert, this as well, because I also ended up working for the archaeological department of Chester University. I finished up doing a big unit on reenactment and public engagement, which is what I'm into, because I really believe that archaeology and history should be, you know, really communicated. You know, it's really important, and the current people in power don't seem to agree with me, but hey, you know, we'll let that one go. Anyway, even under the COVID restrictions, I have still been allowed to run a course for Wilmslow Guild that meets at the Guild headquarters in Wilmslow. I'm privileged to be there because they've been there for over 90 years. They are the oldest adult facility in Britain. There's nobody been there longer than that. So that's kind of where I've found as a home now. I just completed a 10-week course for them. It's live basically. I'm there in front of them. However many students join on. We do it all as PowerPoints, so they're getting exclusive material that nobody else gets. And I'm running it again next year from September. So if people want to come and meet me and talk to me and see those talks, even if we're under lockdown, because it's an educational facility, it's allowed to stay open. So
what is that course exactly, Mark?
It's Wilmslow Guild, and it's called the Archaeology of Myth, and it's going to be part 2. But don't worry, you don't have to have done part 1 to be able to appreciate it. And it just covers so much material, absolutely phenomenal amount of material, and it's good fun.
Well, any obviously advertising and information sent out to the general public you need. You know where I am. You know what the magazine does.
Yeah.
We'll obviously put it through there. I've got to say something. Pomsey Metal Detecting's just said, did you say bagpipes and rock in one sentence? He's talking to somebody else. Have you never heard of Korn or AC/DC, young man?
Yeah, come on. I mean, there was a band knocking around when I was doing gigs and stuff in the 80s called U-Slosh, and they were very much into pipes. I think they were using Irish pipes, and they were a proper serious rock band. So yeah.
He's obviously never heard of the bagpiper either.
No.
With the fire coming out of the end, playing all
absolutely
heavy metal tracks on the bagpipe. Marvelous. YouTube it later.
Yes. You can YouTube. You can look for Wilmslow Guild as well. They've got a site out there somewhere as well. You can look for the guild and do a bit of research.
So the last year, pandemic-wise, it's been heinous for each and every one of us. How have you coped, and what have you been doing during that period of time?
Wow. Okay. What have I been doing during COVID? I tried to complete as many unfinished projects as I possibly could. So I'm going to chuck a bit of an appeal out here. Okay. I produced a book called Crystal Skulls and Human Heads, and it's archaeoscience looking at the issue of the different ways we've perceived the human head through history. And folks who are watching this might have noticed that sat over my shoulder on this side, just there in the bottom corner of the screen, I don't know if you can see him, is in fact a crystal skull. He's probably pre-Columbian, he's over 500 years old, and he got me started on this. And I'm looking for a publisher, because my regular publisher, doesn't quite agree with the content. So, hey,
trust me, I'll put you on to Greenlight Publishing tomorrow. I'll put you on to Julian Evanhart, and you can talk to Julian. They're releasing books, many. I'm a bit of pop. Where are you, Luke?
Well, that's only one.
Where's the book?
Right? That's only one. I've finished that one.
Here's their latest book.
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely love it. Stunning, Mark.
Right. Well, listen.
It's the best book I've ever seen.
Right, while I've got you, I have got, for that format, right, that is the format I want, the size, the pictures, the illustrations. I have got a book on the entire history of King Arthur, Merlin, and Joseph of Arimathea that's took 43 years to finish, and I finished it this year. And that's the format I want for it. It's totally exclusive. John Matthews, who's the world's best Arthurian scholar, he's written the introduction for it. It's got massively rave reviews, but apparently it's too large for my publisher because they only do the tiny books that you can see that I've shown up to now. I would be delighted to talk to them about the King Arthur one as well. That's 2 projects I've finished.
Well, I'll introduce tomorrow morning when I've had to do what I've got to do, which I don't want to do, but I've got to do.
We're linking people up live on air here. This is brilliant.
It's one of the things I try to do. If I can help somebody and put them in communication with somebody else I know can help them, I'm more than happy to. Julian Evanhart, he works for Treasure Hunting magazine, and they're also own Greenlight Publishing. Now, so there's a book catalogue, for instance, with all the different things that they've done, and the books are second to none. I've not seen books quality-wise as good as these. And obviously, if I stick it in communication with Julian, and then you can obviously work between yourselves and see where you get. But
there's a few people that have seen the Arthur manuscript up to now, and it is only a few people. They've all absolutely gone bonkers. They've raved about it because it's just full of stuff. Really relevant stuff, so yeah, if you can link us up. The other thing I finished as well is I've finally finished the 9th Legion as a DVD. and it's, in my opinion, it's the best one I've ever done. But at the moment, it only exists on flash drive because obviously we can't manufacture it till we're out of this current pandemic. But watch this space. So the book that I've got, which is the Ninth Legion, is now also going to be available, like the Robin Hood one, as a DVD. So that's three things I've done, as well as working with the rock band. It's not been a dull few months. Oh, and I've done an entire house up as well and dug this fireplace out in the process. So.
I'll put your Christmas tree up.
Oh yeah, managed to get the Christmas tree up as well. Everything else is in boxes.
Luke texts me during the show. That's how Luke and I communicate via me. Okay. So if you see me looking down, it's because people, as well as questions on there, a lot of people generally send questions via my mobile phone as well. Luke's asked me to ask you, what do you think of the Curse of Oak Island series?
I followed it probably for the first 2/3 of the episodes. I've studied the Oak Island mystery, and I looked at the way they were approaching things, which, to be honest, was a bit brutal, and then it kind of got better. I never saw the end of it, but the frustrating thing was they didn't seem to find what they were looking for. Now, somebody's going to correct me now and tell me probably in the last episode that they found the treasure of Oak Island, but that didn't seem to be where that was going. But the episodes I saw, I did enjoy the bits where they were finding things. I don't have any problem with the medieval stuff they found, because I'm not against things in America before Columbus. Quite the opposite. I'm actually massively in favour of that. If people want to, there was a book produced in the 1970s by an author called Barry Fell, and it was called America BC. And the Americans liked it so much that they banned it. And if you have a look at that book, if you can go find it secondhand somewhere, that really does tell you that America has got tons of history going all the way back to prehistory. The Irish were there, the Vikings were there, the Egyptians dropped in, there's Roman shipwrecks, there's medieval shipwrecks, there's all sorts of stuff around America. Just because everybody wants to, pin it on Columbus doesn't mean that it's not there. So yeah, Oak Island, I think they opened the lid on a lot of things as well during the series, which was good. My kind of series, but I'd have moved it a bit faster than it was going. If you ever watch Lost Treasures, if you can't nip out for a pee break in the adverts, because you've kind of got to process what's gone on in the first half, and the second half moves just as fast. And that's my idea of television. I don't muck about, enjoyed it.
Well, when you talk about Lost Treasures, there's definitely episode 1 of season 1 about Winnick available on YouTube. And what I'll do tomorrow, Mark, for the people who want to watch it, save going searching, I'll put that in a post on the Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine and put that out for people to watch at their own leisure.
Absolutely.
So at least there's one that they can see.
Yeah, we've remastered season 2, and we've remastered season 3, so they're both available, and they were both filmed in HD. But the first series was filmed in ordinary definition, in ordinary format, which has been the sticking point for trying to get this thing out there, because all 3 seasons are in 3 different formats because technology was moving on. The second and third series people probably haven't seen. We've got that, and as I said at the beginning, we're negotiating to try and put out there, but there's very little of it anywhere out there on the internet. Professor Stephen Harding, who does the Vikings for the Wirral, he managed to get all the Viking bits out of the series posted on Wirral Borough Council's site. So if you put in Stephen Harding and you look for the Viking bits, I'm only in a few of them. I'm not in all of them. Stephen tended to take charge of those bits. They're out there as well. But there's loads of extras. There's loads of extra bits floating around the internet from back then.
One thing somebody else wants to ask, Mark, is what is your thoughts in relation to metal detectorists and their benefit to the archaeological community?
Okay, I'll start at the beginning. 1970, whatever it was, 74, 75. My dad bought me what was laughingly called a metal detector back then, which was a butty box with a battery in it, and it kind of went ooh, and that was it. And all I found was a load of rusty chains and bits of rusty nonsense. So I never really went back to metal detecting. And then through my archaeology, obviously, the whole of metal detecting developed at the same rate that my archaeology was developing. Then we got things like the Time Team, where they were, doing really stupid things like scattering washers on site so the detectorists couldn't go on there. And they had this big, hoo-ha, do we like them, don't we like them, this, that, and the other. Through the entire of my archaeological career, I've always been an enormous fan of technology. I love technology. And I can confidently say, as indeed you've already said, that a majority of what we've discovered of material and historical value, at least half of that has got to have come about by metal detecting. But it's got to be responsible metal detecting. So that phrase that I used at the beginning, archaeodetectorist, that is someone who can be trusted and can work with archaeologists. Nowadays, every dig site, especially the commercial ones where they're under time pressure, they have to use metal detectors. And the guys I've met and the clubs I've been to give talks to and the discoveries that I've handled, you meet guys who can tell the difference between two different kinds of whistles that sound the same to me, but they can go, oh yes, that's iron, and then they go, and that one's bronze, and that one's 10 inches down, but that one's probably only an inch down. You're like, okay, these guys are professionals, they are experts, so I mean, as archaeologists, I can't see the sense in not using people with skills that are as keen as that, so I suppose I am a big supporter. I'm a big supporter of technology and a big supporter of metal detecting, as long as it's responsible. And if you're going to get into metal detecting, why not just take a look at what archaeology is? Take your zip bags, write your locations on them, record your finds, record your locations, just a bit of basic stuff, enough. And I'll tell you what, if you hit a big hoard, if you really hit something valuable and you go through the official coroner system, your quid's in at the end of it. So why not? Why not just give yourself that edge and start to contribute to British history? That's what it's all about, really, when we're chasing history. So yeah, I'm a big supporter. I'm a big fan of metal detecting.
Fantastic item, fantastic answer and descriptive as well, Mark. It was great, and I'm sure most people, I mean, most of the viewers that I know personally are responsible detectorists.
Yeah.
There's several people on here I know are actually hoard finders, which is great. Darren Booth, I think it's Darren Booth. Yeah, he found a hoard. I can't remember what it was at the top of my head. I think it was Roman, but I know he's found a hoard, and some of the other things that people have found. I mean, Tony Kaywood put together a YouTube video about how to read LiDAR and old maps.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. We did a show on it. We done an offshoot article related to it. But the information that he was giving out was brilliant. And a lot of people benefited from that learning.
Well, certainly in the Mersey Valley, when I did the Celtic Warrington book series, there wasn't anything like that. The knowledge wasn't there to help and assist metal detectorists. So when I did the book series, and I went around giving talks to metal detectorists, the books sold like bananas. They sold like hotcakes, because by reading those books, you get some experience of the sort of research that you can do. Because it can go further than that. You can do documentary research. You can have a look at old photographs, have a look what's in the background of black and white photos. It can tell you where things have been. There's all the military photographs. There's Google Earth. The list just goes on and on. There's so much out there that you can use. Even OS maps, don't use the modern rubbish. Go and find the Victorian ones that tell you where all the sites are, because they've taken them off the modern maps. So those kind of books and that kind of knowledge and that kind of information, absolutely invaluable. It's like the little red cross on the treasure map. This is where the treasure's buried. Go and have a look, you'll find it.
Mark, do you have a website yourself where people can garner more information?
What I'm going to say is I've always taken a personal approach, and when I have had websites in the past, they've always been manned by somebody else. So I took the decision about 15 years ago that I'm going to stick to Facebook. I know everybody hates the new format, so do I, but I'm going to stick to Facebook. If people genuinely want to find me and talk to me, then just friend me on Facebook. Every single thing I do, every photograph, every place I go, every conversation I have, Facebook embodies Messenger. And if it's important, we can take it to email, we can go further from there. But I would definitely say, if you want to start, you want to get a feel for me and a feel for what I do, there's thousands of photographs on my Facebook. I've tried to keep everything up to date. I run it like a website, and it's got the personal touch. There you go. Ta-da, come and find me. At the moment, I'm ranting and raving about COVID. Don't let that put you off. I think I'm kind of saying what everybody wants to say, but for some reason, everybody else gets blocked. But touch wood, I don't. So, if you want to have a good moan or whatever, or send me more information about stuff, that is definitely the place to go. Thank you, Mr. Technology Guy, for finding that.
He's good at that as well, Luke.
He's brilliant.
One other thing as well, I don't know anybody else that has done this for as long as you personally have done this, and it's phenomenal. And it's the door.
Wow.
Your open door policy, more or less, meetings at home, which you've had as long as I've known you on a monthly basis.
Yes. What we used to do, we used to meet every Monday, the first Monday of the month. The first Monday of every week we used to meet. We used to have 50 odd meetings a year, but it got far too much when I was doing television to keep that up. Obviously, I've relocated. I'm at a different address now, so we've actually not had any meetings at this new address because we've gone into lockdown. But we will in the new year hopefully resume meeting on the first Monday of the month. And it is an open door. It's called The Door. It's histories, mysteries and discoveries. So there's always a topic. It's got all kinds of themes, everything, from herbs and witchcraft and wizardry and, ancient beliefs and archaeology and, you name it, Loch Ness Monster, spoon bending, UFOs, bring whatever, as long as everybody's open to, not sort of arguing and fighting and being disagreeable with each other. Hopefully that'll start up again in the new year. In the new year, in June, we are 25. We are 25 years old. I think over the years we spread over 7 counties, and at one point we had about 750 members or something. I mean, you've got to bear in mind these are in the days before the internet and before social media, when people actually used to come together and meet in the real world and talk to each other face to face. So we're kind of trying to keep that going. So yes, we have a slightly bigger venue here now as well. We can probably take up to 30 or 40 people, but that's kind of worked against us in the pandemic because obviously we can't. But yes, we're still going. We're still here. If you want to know more, have a chat with me on Facebook and message me.
There isn't really a Zoom, a door Zoom.
Well, it kind of defines the object. I've had so many people say to me, "Why don't you take the door onto, Zoom or whatever?" But you've got to meet face to face. There's no substitute for the face to face, the physical contact. So it's not killed us. It's just kind of put us into hibernation. But, the opportunity to come back next year with the 25th anniversary, I mean, we're absolutely chomping at the bit. So there probably will be a relaunch, and that will definitely go right across social media via Facebook. And, all the people will pyramid sell it like they always do. So you will get to hear about that. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not the kind of, pop star or television personality that likes to hide. Also, I give talks, as you mentioned earlier on, if people want to book me for a society or whatever, once we get going again, please contact me via Facebook. I can give you my email and we can start looking at me coming out. I think I've got 37 live PowerPoints, 3 of which are centered on lost treasures. And they cover history right from, prehistory right the way through to UFO crashes. There's going to be something on there. I can send you a list anyway. So yeah, very much so. I'm just chomping at the bit. I want to get out there and meet people again.
Well, if you're ever in a position, when we are in the position to do that again, and you want me to come up and talk crap, I can certainly do that.
I'd certainly be delighted.
I've got a number of subjects that I've got myself in that I've obviously, because I used to do the Wrexham Science Festival, as you know. I used to do talks there. And throughout the UK in different areas, I've done different talks. I probably won't touch upon the subject matter that I've done in the past, but things can be tailored to suit. And obviously,
I'd be so delighted.
You give me a shout, and I'll for a fact I'll do anything.
You're up and running.
If you're doing any filming where you need a metal detectorist, or if you've got any sites that you're looking at and you need somebody with a metal detector, again, exactly where I am. I'm only half hour away, and I'm more than willing to help out. You've done so much for me in the past that I'm obviously grateful for. Then I want to give back, which I do with a lot of people that they know about. So just give me a shout anytime. So
absolutely, you're going to regret that next year.
No, I certainly won't. So Mark, before we wind up for the evening, is there anything else you'd like to add? Give any more information? Any bits and bobs?
I've pretty well covered the advertising. It would be nice if, like I said, if Iconic got a decent number of hits for the Avery episode, the Walking Britain series that they've done. Don't hold it against them. It's David's sons, so they're a little bit more down to earth. It is a proper. Hey, there you go. Well done. I believe they're running like a week's free trial as well, so you can get on there for a week, suck it and see what you think. You can watch me and then maybe stay with them. I think the whole idea of the channel is to try to improve what's coming out in terms of media, to help people, to improve people, to educate people. So at the end of the day, I've got to put myself behind something like that, because there's not a lot of stuff like that on the internet. I've been on the internet now for a long time, and I can definitely say get behind this iconic and try and support it. I know David's got his own particular way of carving out his unique viewpoint on life, but as I say, this goes a lot further than that. This is broader. There's a lot of good people on there, and I am working directly with his sons. So if you get a chance to go and watch that, please do. That's well worth a plug. Plus the fact they might actually employ me and use me again.
I like the fact you were so polite about David Icke.
Well, I can't fault him for some of the things he comes out with, but some of the things he comes out with would be better said, I think, if he put some history and context behind them. He's very famous for certain misquotes, but if you actually do the research, the historical side of it, there is something behind it. There were lizard people in the depictions in ancient Babylon, you know what I mean? And in the Bible, it says in the Old Testament, and Jesus himself says, we are all gods with a small g. So, if somebody puts something in context and where they're getting their information from,
that's the catch, isn't it?
That's the catch. But, if you're on television and you don't have a sympathetic interviewer like yourself, they will tear strips off you if you don't back things up. I think David in his early days learned that very, very quickly. But yeah, okay, I'm working with his sons. His sons are brilliant. They're fab. So,
well, I know my colleague in the production area will be certainly probably looking at that site, because he likes a bit of things like that, as I mentioned earlier. So, well, Mark,
it's not all David Icke-isms either. A lot of it is kind of helpful stuff.
Yeah.
There's meditation on there, there's yoga on there, there's all kinds of community stuff on there. So yeah, there you go.
Have you seen me? I can't do yoga. I've tried doing the plank, and I'm just a plank.
Well, that's the closest I get to yoga. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but that's the closest I get to yoga.
I get closer to yogurt.
There you go. Yeah.
Well,
hey, don't knock it. I can do it twice.
Oh, good Lord.
There you go. Look at that.
Marvelous. Well, Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. As ever, I could speak to you all night long. We've only scratched the surface of your career. We've not talked about a lot of things, and I'm sure a lot of people would like you to return in the future.
I'd be delighted.
So when we can look at a totally different area than what I've only spoke tonight about, the areas that I've been privy to personally.
Well, have a look at the questions that people send in. Build another episode around those.
Absolutely. Yeah. And again, if anybody wants to contact me for things that they would like to talk about with Mark, get in contact with me and ask that. And obviously, if you want to speak to Mark, find him on Facebook, Mark Olly. You've seen his little at, and you'll chat away. He's got loads of time at the minute in lockdown.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll be back next week. We were supposed to have another massive guest, but unfortunately, due to their commitments at the moment, we've got to be coming in the new year with that show. So I think we've got another guest lined up. I just haven't confirmed with him yet. So that'll be on the 24th. No, it won't. It'll be on the 23rd. So next week will actually be on Wednesday, because we don't want to be getting people bothered on Christmas Eve, do we? The following week, again, we'll be broadcasting on Wednesday due to it being New Year's Eve on the Thursday, and I won't be doing anything but eating on New Year's Eve anyway. And on that edition, it's coming together with the Search magazine and Treasure Hunting magazine, Dan Spencer and Julian Evan Hart, and we will be reviewing the major finds and the best finds of each company, each magazine, and looking at them, going through them, talking about them, and other highlights of the year. And yes, Tony Kaywood's just reminded me that we do have an app. The Archaeology and Metal Detecting magazine is available on Play Store. So go and have a look at that. It's free. All the information's on there. You can watch every back episode of the Big Detecting Show, all the way from the very start. They're all on there, so you can see them at any time. Plus ArcMD Mag TV, which is our version of Netflix. And there's lots of things in there, from documentaries to YouTubers, to archaeology, metal detecting, Roman, Viking, etc., etc. And Mark's in there somewhere as well, the episode of the Winnick episode of Lost Treasures. So, again, I bid you adieu. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you, and have a very Merry Christmas to you and your all.
To you.
And
Yeah.
I will speak to you tomorrow on Messenger to give you some information and link you up with certain people.
Please do.
Take care, Mark.
Watch this space.
Watch that space. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. Right, it's early o'clock. I'm out again. I'm at the beach. Not normal beach, different one. I've travelled. I've met up with a couple of guys from the Peaky Finders. There's a couple of them. Got Lee and Gary, Mr. Spoons. And further down the beach, got Tony and is it Graham? I can't remember the other guy's name. It eludes me at the moment. Give away from Gary. Right, so we are, where am I? Seaford. So it's a bit of a steep beach. Tide's just going out, see the sand down there. Got a harbour wall along there. I don't know if it's going to be any good or not, I don't know. But yeah, we're about to start and we'll see you on the first hole. All right, we'll get that out of the way. That's the first one. The obligatory fish and weight. Wouldn't be a hunt if we didn't find one there, mate. One's a bit different. 19. Yeah. Looks like a squid, doesn't it? That's pretty cool. Got a hook in it. Hang on.